When you ask someone to tell you something about the biblical story of Christmas, there are a lot of things out in the world that we talk about why we celebrate Christmas. When you ask them to talk about what the Bible says about Christmas, most people can tell you a few things. And usually if you ask them or they're talking about it, they'll probably mention the wise men or the magi. The people will tell you 3 wise men came to bring gifts to Jesus. They might even know that the gifts are, you tell me, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Someone started with frankincense, which I love, but that's different than what we usually hear, right? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And they'll tell you there were 3 of them. The Bible doesn't tell us there were 3 of them. The Bible uses the word magi, which is plural. So we know there's more than one, but we don't know if there were specific at 3 or how many there were. But that's how people know it, so they'll tell you that. They probably won't mention where they're from, because really, according to the Bible, we really don't know where they were from. We have some guesses. They might tell you what the Bible says they were from the east, though. Certainly a lot of people that talk to you about the Magi, they'll tell you they followed a star to Bethlehem to find baby Jesus, but and we're not sure Jesus was a baby during their visit. He could have been a baby. He could have been anywhere up to almost 2 years old. We don't know, but you ask people to tell you the biblical story of Christmas, and they'll often tell you something about the visit of the Magi, the wise men, which I think is interesting because, historically, the visit of the Magi was not part of the church's celebration of Christmas. It wasn't, we got through the Christmas season, and then the commemoration of the visit of the Magi was actually celebrated on January 6th, which is a day we call, get this, Epiphany. You know the word, right? And Epiphany is January 6th, or the Sunday that's closest to January 6th. It just so happens that this year, January 6th is a Sunday. It's today. We have a true Epiphany Sunday. So as I came back from my vacation, I had in my mind, maybe we'll move away from what these traditional Christmas scriptures are toward other sermon topics. But I couldn't pass it up because it's a true Epiphany Sunday. So you got to talk about the wise men. So we do. We talk about the wise men today. And if you ask people to tell you about Christmas, specifically about the Magi, most of them have something to say about it, the things we've already been talking about. But most of the time, they leave a lot of big stuff out. Even in the church, when we talk about the visit of the Magi, we leave out a lot of big, important things. And one of the big things we leave out, or mostly leave out, is King Herod. King Herod. Case in point, how many of you got together with your friends or family this Christmas season and had a wonderful conversation about King Herod? And now, even if you talked about things from the Bible at Christmas time, you probably didn't even think about King Herod. It's interesting, though, because in the biblical text about the Magi, King Herod looms large. I mean, he's large and in charge here, and he lets us know it. But most of the time, we leave him out because, we like our Christmas stories to be nice and cute and precious, like that newborn baby in the manger, right? And we like our Christmas stories to be all full of gingerbread and happiness, like a Hallmark Channel Christmas movie, right? You put it in a pretty package with a big bow on top, and it's Christmas. And you start talking about all this Herod stuff, and that throws all that right out the window, doesn't it? Because this Herod stuff, it's mean and it's ugly, it's downright evil. And we don't want that at Christmas time. That's not part of what we want at Christmas. Get that out of here. We wait till January 6th. After all the kids are back in school, if we had any time off for the holidays, that's done. We're all back to the grind, right? And we're collectively looking at 2, 3, we don't know how many months of stark, cold winter weather. It's the most depressing time of the year. So now we can talk about this Herod stuff. We're ready for that now, right? So let's talk about this Herod stuff. Herod's story is intertwined with the visit of the Magi. The Magi come to the capital city of Jerusalem looking for the King of the Jews. And they say, we followed this star here, and we're looking for him. Now, don't ask me why or how they know this star is connected to the birth of the King of the Jews, or why they even care. We don't know that. What we do know is that news of the Magi's search reaches King Herod. And we are told by Matthew, Herod is disturbed by this because Herod, he is ruling as king at the will of Caesar in Rome. Because the Romans, they got everything right now. So Herod is ruling at the will of Caesar, and he's disturbed presumably by the idea that eventually somebody else could be seen as king in this area. And he's got the power, and he wants to hold it. So he's disturbed. So Herod, not the Magi, but Herod calls the scholars together. And he says, hey, I need you to look into prophets, what we now have as part of our Old Testament. He says, I need you to look at it and see, where is Messiah, the King of the Jews? Where is he supposed to be born? Because I got people saying he's been born. Where is he? So they go and they come back to him. And they quote the prophet Micah to him. And they say, according to Micah, Herod, the King of the Jews, Messiah, is supposed to be born in Bethlehem. Little town, nothing town, no one really cares about it. That's where he's supposed to be born. So Herod's got this information, right? Now he's armed. So Matthew tells us he secretly calls the Magi to him. And he tells them to go continue your search. He says, I'll even give you a direction. It's Bethlehem. That's where the star's going to go. Go to Bethlehem. And Herod says, now, as soon as you find him, you make sure you come and tell me where he is. Because I want to go worship him too. So I need you to do me a favor here and let me know. And so that's what he tells the wise men. Now, the interesting thing is that we are told he does this secretly. See, there's no evidence that in the Bible that Herod has spoken to the Magi before directly. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But now he calls them secretly. And the question is, why all this secrecy? And the Bible doesn't tell us directly why. But we can guess based on clues we find later in the narrative that it's because Herod's already plotting against this child. He doesn't want to know where this kid is so he can go worship him. He wants to know where the kid is so he can kill him. Get rid of the problem, the threat to his kingdom before it even starts. So he sends the Magi on their way, and they don't know anything about all this. And they follow the star, and it leads them to Bethlehem, right where Jesus is with his mother. And they go in, and they bow down, and they worship him, and they give him their gifts of frankincense and gold and myrrh. And at this point, it's kind of over for the wise men. You know, all those years, months of preparation and all that hard work to get here, they come in, and you're like, okay, now they bow down and worship and give the gifts, and it's over. Kind of like Christmas morning for us, right? You know, we go through those weeks of preparation. We're all excited. We can't wait. We get to Christmas morning. We open it all up. And then we're done. Right? I actually heard a story this week about a woman who invites her family in, you know, her kids, her grandkids, you know, the big family in on Christmas, and they celebrate Christmas, and then they go home. And before that woman goes to bed on Christmas Day, she takes down and puts away all her decorations. It's over, right? It is not how Christmas is. You know, it's kind of like how it was for the wise men. You know, they're there and it's done. What do? Well, I guess at this point they're planning on heading back to Jerusalem where their buddy Herod is waiting for them. But we're told they're warned about Herod in a dream. Now, we're not told if it's an angel who warns them in a dream or they get some sort of warning. We're not told specifically what they are told about Herod, but they're disturbed by it enough to just get out of there. They go back to their own place in a way that takes them away from Herod. For all we know, they have to go out of their way to avoid Herod, but they don't go anywhere near Herod because they've been warned. And Matthew tells us they're not the only ones who were warned. The angel of the Lord once more comes to Joseph in a dream. Now, you remember Joseph, right? That guy who's already done so much and sacrificed so much and put up with so much for this baby, Jesus. It's not even his. And we're all about Mary, right? Oh, Mary, the mother of Jesus. Joseph's the guy. He's wonderful. And so the angel appears to him again in the middle of the night. And he says, get up, take the child and his mother, take Mary, and flee to Egypt. Because Herod is going to come to kill the kid. And there must have been some urgency in this dream warning, because we are told that Joseph, in the middle of the night, takes Jesus and Mary, and they run away to Egypt. They don't even wait till morning. It's just like, get up now, we're going. Get out now. And they do. And we're told why. And this is the part we don't like. Herod figures out that the Magi, well, they're not coming back. He apparently waits for them for a while, and they're not coming back. And they're not going to tell him specifically where to find this child or which child is the one. So Herod realizes he's been outwitted, he's been duped, and he is furious, and he's desperate to keep his power. And he remembers that the Magi had apparently told him that the star had appeared about 2 years ago. Now, we don't know if this means the star appeared and the Magi followed it, so Jesus was maybe about 2 when the Magi visited him. Or maybe the star appeared a little bit more like 2 years before Jesus was born, so the wise men could see it. They could make the long journey and travel to arrive in Bethlehem right around when Jesus was born. We don't know. Neither did Herod. So he just does the math. And he works it all out. And in his fury, he issues the order that every boy in Bethlehem and the surrounding area, 2 years or younger, should be killed. I mean, it's crazy. And his minions carry out the order. Okay, he's the king. They have to do it. And so weeping and wailing go up from Bethlehem at this Holocaust, this mass slaughter. Mothers crying and mourning in the streets, refusing to be comforted, unable to be comforted. Ladies, imagine your little boys ripped from your arms and killed in front of you. You're not comforted in that. It's inconsolable. It's evil. That's Herod's story. It's terrifying and tragic, and it is the true cost of Christmas. You can get together and add up all your receipts from last month about what it costs to celebrate Christmas, but that's not the true cost of Christmas. This story of Herod. This is the cost of Christmas, and we don't like to hear it. We don't like to tell this part of the story. We don't tell it very often at all. So a lot of people don't even know it. Last month for our young adult outreach that we do over here on Tuesdays, I was actually teaching to them out of Matthew chapter 2, and we were talking about the Magi, and I started talking to them about this bit about Herod killing all the kids. And guess how many of them knew that part of the story? 0, because we don't talk about it. When we came for Christmas Eve, we had our scriptures given to us by video, and we had the traditional Christmas scriptures on Christmas Eve, and some of you who were here will remember that. And we looked at Matthew chapter 2, and I played the video, but I stopped it really abruptly. Some of you might have noticed before we got into all this stuff about Herod, because we don't want to hear it, not at Christmas, because it's evil. But we need to talk about it, and we need to think about it, because there's so much in this story that we can apply to our lives today as we encounter evil, things that happen in our lives. So just real quickly, I want to pull out 3 things and put them in front of you for you to think about and consider and act on when you encounter bad or evil things happening in your life, because you're going to. And you're going to because of the first thing. When God sets out to do something good, evil will rise to counter it. God is always at his good work. Psalm 119 verse 68 says about God, you are good and you do good work. You see, he's always about his work of doing good and bringing good into this world and bringing good into our lives. But the devil hates God. And so he hates the good that God sets out to do in this world. So God sets out to do good. The devil sets out to destroy it. He rises to the occasion. 1 Peter 5:8 tells us the devil prowls around like a lion looking for someone to devour. See, the devil, our enemy, he's prowling around looking for those on whom God would show goodness so he can destroy them. So he can destroy God's goodness. Anytime God goes to work to bring goodness and blessing into the world, the devil rises to stop him. And he will use whatever is at his disposal. He's got influence over a lot of people's lives. He will use that to get them to do something over here, to mess up this over here, to just really mess up God's goodness. And don't be fooled. He's good at doing this in your life at causing destruction in the light of God's goodness. That's what's going on in Herod's story, right? God's about good. He's sending his son into the world. He's doing good and blessing the world by sending his son. So what's the devil do? He uses Herod to bring evil in the face of God's goodness. In your life, God is at work to bring goodness and to bless you as a way of glorifying himself, as a way of drawing you closer to him, that you would know his mercy more and more each day as you seek him and imitate him. He's at work doing good in your life. Guess what the devil's going to do? You know. He'll rise to bring destruction and pain in your life. He will often use other people to do it because he is so opposed to God's goodness. That brings us to our second point. The devil is so good at doing this that often we have trouble seeing God's goodness. Right? The devil can wreak so much havoc in the world and in your life and in the lives of people around you that sometimes it seems near impossible to see any goodness from God in the midst of it. Some of you have been there. People, in one way or another, they're influenced by the devil. They're going to do horrible things. And when God is doing something good, the devil's going to make sure of it. All is part of the devil's plan to hide God's goodness from those who would benefit from it. What do you think of those mothers and fathers in Bethlehem? Those aunts and uncles and grandparents as they buried their murdered children? Do you really think they saw the birth of Jesus as this great blessing? No, it was the greatest act of goodness God has ever done in the world, sending his son, and the devil made sure that the people in Bethlehem, the people right there in the midst of it, could not see it. Maybe instead of marveling at God's goodness, they're resentful of God for not protecting them. They're resentful because of the trials they are undergoing. Maybe they are mad at God and doubted he loved them at all. How could God really love me if these things keep happening? In your own life, perhaps in the past, maybe right now. Maybe the machinations of the devil have blinded you to the good God is doing and has done. And you're straining your eyes, you're hoping, you're praying, but God's goodness seems so far off and remote and small next to the troubles you're experiencing. Rest assured, in those moments, God is actively at work doing good in this world and in your life. And maybe you can't see it, but maybe God just punches through at certain parts in small ways just to get you through. As in the case when the Magi and Joseph are warned about Herod. God's goodness shines through right there. Doesn't stop the evil that Herod was doing. Didn't change the destruction the devil was bringing into the world. But it was enough to get them through. The same way God will ensure you have enough to get you through until such time that his plan of goodness just is completely worked out and you see it and you understand it. Because here's the third and final point I'm going to make today about this. God's in it for the long game. Meaning God's work in your life and in this world may take time. It may take lots of time to play out. 2 Peter verse 8 tells us, with the Lord a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. You know what that means? God's beyond time. And so he will take his time, the perfect amount of time, to see his plan come to fruition, to bring about his ultimate good works in your life, through your life, and in this world. See, the devil's in it only for the moment. So he's going to get you right now. Whatever pain and sorrow and destruction he can get at you with right now, he's going to do it. He's not looking to the future. God is. God's looking to the past. He's looking at your present. He's looking at your future. And he tells us, he promises us, he's got plans to give us, you and me, a future, a good future. He's patiently working out good things and blessings in our lives, even though maybe we can't see them right now. And amidst the troubles brought on by the devil in this world, he asks us to come along with him and be patient. Until one day we get to that point where the goodness comes through. I mean, certainly the people in Matthew chapter 2 that we look at today, they were troubled. The parents of those slaughtered children had to have wondered where God is in any of this. Where is God's goodness in any of this? Even Joseph, as he's in exile and he's living on the run as a foreigner in Egypt with his new wife and this new baby, had to have doubted God's plan. Is any goodness able to come from this? Where is it? They couldn't have possibly understood that with patience. Some 30 years later, this newborn baby, who was the reason Herod had wrought so much tragedy in Bethlehem, would die on the cross to save all people from eternal hell. See, God's got it in the long game. He's working out his goodness in our lives and in the world. And the goodness might not show up until later out there, but it's there. God's working at it all along. So often in the midst of trouble and tragedy, we can't see it because we have difficulty seeing beyond the now. We're like those wailing mothers in Matthew 2 in Bethlehem, the victims of Herod's vicious slaughter. We refuse to be comforted right now. And so we're tempted to become bitter and hopeless waiting for our God. But God's in it for the long game, ladies and gentlemen. And when we have faith in him, we trust him, we seek him, we follow him, he'll bring us to the place where we get to the end of the game. We will experience the payoff. A little over 3 years ago, when things went so tragically awful here with our youth ministry, it was a painful time for you, for me, but a lot of painful things came out of that. And one of the painful things that came out of it for me was that we lost all those teenagers. Some of you know, well, most of you were here at the time, there were weeks we had more teenagers in these pews on Sunday morning than we had in the rest of the pews. They outnumbered y'all. And then they were just gone. And they weren't just gone from the pews Sunday morning, but they were gone from my life because, we had a youth pastor do the heavy lifting, but they were part of my life as much as you all are. When we come together to do ministry during the week, and do things, we do it with you. And if they were doing it, I'd be there with them. And suddenly they're just gone. I have no influence on their lives and they're no longer with me. And I kept thinking, well, I'll just be patient. Where's the good in all this? I'll be patient. They need a few weeks, a few months to heal, get some perspective, and they'll be back. Not all of them, but maybe a handful of them. Or they just need a year or two. And we passed 3 years this July. And then last month, middle of December, middle of the Christmas season, Christmas, yeah. I'm on social media site and this page is recommended to me, so I click on it, and there are these pictures and videos of some of these young people, college age now, many of whom professed faith. I baptized some of them. Well, there they are. And pictures, videos, I watched them. Drinking, doing drugs, all online for everyone to see. And it threatened to just tear me down, put me back to that place I was toward them 3 years ago, of just being devastated by the whole thing. Until I remember something you all know. I'm impatient. 3.5 years, we should be past this. No, God's in it for the long game. He is working out good. He's working out good in that situation. I don't know how it's going to turn out. The good might turn out in ways I don't even see. Maybe after I'm gone from this earth. Joseph, who dealt with all that stuff, never got to see Jesus in his earthly ministry. He was gone before then. He didn't see Jesus give his life to save people for all eternity. It happened after him, but God was always working out that goodness. Maybe that goodness is just going to come about in ways I can't see and never see, but it's going to be there, because here's the thing. Even the King Herod, could not stop God's goodness from moving forward. Amidst the pain and the destruction the devil brought into the world, the fight, the coming of this child into the world, God's good endured. God's good ultimately superseded the tragedy. It's so big, God's goodness, that the tragedy was just very localized and temporary. God's good won. God's good always wins. Amidst the troubles in your life, in my own life, God's good will win. Nothing that comes our way, nothing that anybody else could ever do will beat God's good or God's goodness. So no matter where you are in life right now, or no matter what comes at you in 2019 or beyond, God's good prevails. Learn that from King Herod. God's good prevails. It prevailed in Bethlehem and Jerusalem some 2,000 years ago, and it will prevail in your life. God is good. Let's pray.